House is confirming there is a potential Russian threat to U.S. national security. The confirmation coming yesterday, just one day after House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner warned of intelligence that indicates Russia is looking to develop a nuclear weapon in space. And it could threaten satellites from America. Here's what White House National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby said about this yesterday. Watch.
I can confirm that it is related to an anti-satellite capability that Russia is developing. This is not an active capability that's been deployed. And though Russia's pursuit of this particular capability is troubling, there is no immediate threat to anyone's safety. We are not talking about a weapon that can be used to attack human beings or cause physical destruction here on Earth.
The U.S. also launching satellites into orbit yesterday with advanced missile tracking technology. Joining me right now is Heritage Center for National Defense, former Pentagon official, former Navy Captain Brent Sadler. Great to see you, sir. Thanks very much for being here this morning. How do you assess this story?
Well, it's quite interesting. After all the hyperventilation yesterday about this, we still only know very little about this capability. But what we have heard so far, it doesn't sound like it's a new type of threat. Even during the Cold War, the Soviet Union was thought to have or planned to have an EMP weapon, blasting a nuclear weapon in space. I'm not sure I see how different this is other than maybe the delivery method. And it's really quite curious, the timing and the nature in which this information was put out to the public.
Well, are you saying that maybe the Republicans are onto something when they accuse Mike Turner of having a hair on fire moment over this because he's trying to pick up the pace of sending money to Ukraine?
I'm not sure about that. It's just very unusual for something like this that's highly sensitive, classified, for it to be put out so quickly. And we do know there was some coordination. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, I've heard there's some theories about it, but it would be best for Representative Turner to come out and kind of say why the timing and why the urgency. And I think he can do that without crossing thresholds of classification.
All right. The U.S., meanwhile, carried out 4 more self-defense strikes against Houthi rebel targets in Yemen this week. U.S. Central Command also announcing that a U.S. Coast Guard ship seized advanced Iranian weapons, another lethal aid that was headed to the Houthis late last month. There were more than 200 packages of weapons found on board, Brent. Your reaction, and what about the U.S.'s response to the Iranian attacks on our troops in the Middle East, more than 170 at this point since October 17th?
Yeah. Well, my overarching theme and biggest complaint to our policy, at least this administration's policy, has been too little, too late, signaling too much and acting too little. The fact that we're still intercepting these weapons going into Yemen's good, but the problem is that we're probably only getting a small fraction. And if there's any hope of stopping the Houthis from continuing these attacks, you have to keep pressing them with attacks against their capabilities, at the same time cutting off Iran from resupplying. And these inspections, some of them are flag inspections of ships that aren't showing any indication of what nation they're flagged, and the other is in support of UN sanctions. That needs to be turned up, and there needs to be more players putting the pressure on Iran and getting these weapons into Yemen.
Brent, give us your overall sense of what's happening here with foreign policy out of this administration. I mean, we know it's not just Russia, Ukraine, it's not just the Houthis and Iran on Israel, it's China and the aggression that has come out of the Communist Party since Joe Biden walked into the Oval Office. How should the United States be responding to Communist China right now with all of these soft attacks that we see every day against America?
Well, this actually, what we're seeing right now is actually what starts with the disastrous withdrawal out of Afghanistan. And at every turn, even with the very bad public statements, which really gave a green light for Putin back in January of 22 to launch his second invasion. So the administration needs to take a much clearer, I wouldn't say necessarily harder, though that would be helpful if it's backed with actual presence of military forces where they actually feel there's a red line that could be crossed. But they got to be a lot more clear where American interests are and that we're ready to back up. Right now, all sides are seeing weakness. The North Koreans are continuing and ratcheting up provocations, all the way to the Iranians that have been attacking and testing us for, quite frankly, 2 years, and even encouraging a year ago Hamas to launch the attack that they did on October 7th.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels that after that botched withdrawal, our adversaries decided to, pick up their march against America. and the West in general.
No, absolutely. They smelt it or felt that there was weakness in the Capitol in D.C. and that they could get away with it. And so, again, the attacks that have been against our forces in the Middle East, that's been ongoing for 2 years. And up until October 7th, there was almost 100 of these attacks and only 4 responses. So that indicates the U.S. didn't see a red line as being crossed there. And so if the Iranians wanted to continue to press their interests, they saw a green light, a vacuum, if you will, in the Middle East. And we haven't filled it. We haven't responded effectively yet.
All right. We will leave it there and keep a watch on it, Brent. Thank you. Brent Sadler joining us this morning.